In our previous scenario, we looked at a case where we needed to do a variance between two data sets, and we had to make it dynamic enough to be able to handle new data. We looked at student records, and we looked at what would happen if we needed to add a new student. But what happens if you need to add new fields, such as a new subject? This is a bit more challenging, and we'll be going over it in this video. Are you ready? Let's get to it.
In this video, we'll be building on what we did before, where we looked at adding new rows. In this case, we'll be adding new columns to our table comparison. This means we must take a much more dynamic approach. But the first thing we'll look at is in row 12. We have a case where the new data is lower than the old data. However, it doesn't pick this up as a variance. The reason is that our BYROW formula only looks if the total is less than 0. In this case, the total is over 0. We can fix this with the map function. We're going to add map right after the BYROW and wrap our variance columns x3 to af3 in a left bracket. And we'll add the ABS formula and close the bracket. What this does is that it applies an absolute value to every cell in the range. Since we won't have negative values anymore, we'll change the if condition to greater than 0. And there we go. Row 12 now correctly shows as having a variance. So, the next case we'll be looking at is if we have more columns that we need to add. And we happen to have some additional data hidden on the sheet in rows 34 to 60, the sports subject. We're going to copy the old data onto the old table at the end, and we're going to copy the new data onto the new table at the end. While we now have the new subject in our tables, we still don't have the headers set up properly on the variance table. Remember, we want this variance table to be dynamic as well. So we're going to start recreating our variance headings with the drop formula. We don't want to have the student numbers. To get our headers, we select the original data, and in square brackets, #headers. The next two arguments are 0, no rows, and 1, meaning we will drop the first column. And we now have all of our subjects in the variance section. But how do we actually add a column for variance? In this case, we do the opposite of drop. We use hstack. This will allow us to append a column to the headers. We're going to add a comma after our drop formula, and in brackets, variance. Since we don't want our variance column sitting in the data table, we drag this to the right into the variance column for now. So for our variance columns, we want to be able to work with them dynamically as well. Like before, we will use the drop function, but this time on the original data table. No brackets. We're not dropping any rows and dropping the first column. For the new data, we do the same. Drop function, new data table, 0, 1. This will create a spill error. This is because we have created a function that works with an entire table, and the subject by subject columns are blocking the full table formula. If we delete the other columns, the variance will fill for all columns. But this creates an error in our variance column. We're trying to refer to each column, but there is only one data set now. We need to clear out the :AF3. And now our variance check can handle if new columns are added to or removed from the table. Did you like what you saw in that video? If you did, please comment in the comment section below. And if there's any other Excel topics that you'd like to hear about, please add those as well. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I really look forward to showing more Excel tips and tricks in the future.